inspiring reading and very pertinent to our own personal spiritual journeys, reason versus intuition. Because I don't know about you, but I can tend to get wrapped up in my own mind and sort of work my way into a logical labyrinth with seemingly no way out. And that's what this reading is trying to remind us of, the importance of coming back to our center where God resides. It's not important enough to believe in God. In fact, don't believe in Him. Commune with God, because that is what will clarify. As Sam is reading, it makes perfectly clear. You know, Swami Kriyananda, Yogananda's direct disciple, our founder and friend and mentor, the publishing arm of Ananda he called crystal clarity. And that crystal clarity comes on an intuitive soul level. There's a funny story of an old wise man, and this young disciple comes to him and asks him, how did you develop such good judgment and discrimination? And the old wise man said, experience. And the young man thought about it and was going to leave, and then he probed further. And he said, well, how do you get experience? And the wise man said, bad judgment. So it's through a trial and error process that we develop our faculty of intuition. But what really is intuition? Yogananda described it as the soul's power of knowing God. And again, we're not talking about intellectual knowledge. The way that he actually defined self-realization was the knowing in all parts of body, mind, and soul that you are now in possession of the kingdom of God. That you don't have to pray that it come to you. That God's omnipresence is your omnipresence. And all you have to do is improve your knowing. Isn't that an inspiring and hopeful understanding of what intuition, of what the real knowledge that we're after is? And that can only come by our own effort of turning within. You know, this is why when Swami Kriyananda met his master, Paramahansa Yogananda, our guru, you know, he had that moment in time where he saw Autobiography of a Yogi, and there was just something about it that he knew. Have you had a moment like that? Where maybe it was Autobiography itself, or a movie, or a word that a friend said to you, or in a meditation? There was just like that reading, that beautiful poem, Thank You, Mira, that she shared, where there's that pause, and there's a space. And in between your thoughts, you, for a moment, receive that divine inspiration. You know, it's like Joseph Campbell used to ask this question, where are you between thoughts? And I used to kick that one. I used to think about that a lot before I meditated. But you can't, it's not something that you can wrap your head around. And that's why the masters, you know, they're spiritual psychologists in a sense. And, you know, many times what Yogananda, the advice and the counsel that he gave didn't seem to make any sense, like the Swami Kriyananda. You know, for example, he told Swamiji, you must get more devotion. Get more devotion, because Swamiji was very intellectual. And what work did he ask Swamiji to do? He had him writing articles for the SRF magazine. And Swamiji was like, why am I writing articles? I'm supposed to be chanting, I'm supposed to be, you know, in bhakti all the time. But what Yogananda was trying to help him with was to understand that to bring feeling nature into his natural proclivity, which was for writing, lecturing, and editing. And you saw the fruit of that over Swamiji's life, that then this beautiful bouquet, this garden of self-realization, of creativity through the written word, through music, most of all through his example of discipleship. And Paramahansa Yogananda did this many times. He would say something to a disciple, they would just almost in puzzlement, and then in that open space, then you could see that he could offer them what they really needed to hear, what their soul was yearning for. There was a friend of ours, one of the monks in India, who told this story. He was driving in Maharashtra, one of the central states of India, where Ganesha is worshipped, quite prominently. So Ganesha, if you don't know, is the elephant head god. I'm sure a lot of you know Ganesha. And so he was driving, I think, to Pune, and he got pulled over by a police officer, and he was going to give him a ticket. And so he pled, I guess it's like the seventh, I don't know, when you're a monk, he said, I'm a monk, I'm poor, I look at me, I'm my yellow, can you cut me a break here? And actually in India, the police officer did. I don't think in America you could pull that one. But in India he did. And the police officer asked him a question. He said, so in the Christian religion they have one God. In the Muslim religion they have one God. Why do we here in India have so many gods? And the monk said, well, you see, we actually do believe in one God. It's that infinite consciousness that is in his infinity taken on this infinite number of forms for all of his devotees. And the police officer said, that is a very good answer, thank you. Now I know that Ganesha is the one God. And this is the problem with going about it through the intellect. We then latch onto it, that it's this way. Swamiji wrote, I think I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, a beautiful book called Out of the Labyrinth. For those who want to believe but can't. That's what he called it. And in there he talks about how the Western mindset, we're schooled in the either-or mentality. Finding the absolute answer. It's got to be this or that. And in India, the Eastern mindset is both end. For example, when Yogananda was interpreting the scriptures and Swamiji was there with him, he would say, well, it means this, such and such, and then it also means this and that and the other thing, and he kept going, a variety of interpretations. And Swamiji was like, can't he make up his mind? But truth is like a diamond, and it can be appreciated from many facets. And that is what the masters are reflecting to us. Most importantly, it's our relation to the master. It's our relation to Divine Mother. Because they don't need our help. We need theirs. This is what Christ said to Peter. Peter, who do you say I am? And Peter was not a learned man. He was a fisherman. And what did Peter say? You are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Jesus knew that this was a divine revelation that Peter received. And why? Because of his openness, because of his receptivity, because of his understanding of Christ not on an intellectual level, where the intellect is endlessly, it just runs about in circles. It has to come on a deeper, intuitive soul level. That's why I'm saying don't believe in God. Commune with Him. Because that is the way that you will know in your own heart and soul who He really is. And that is the way that you can, it's the only way that we can progress. It's through our own experience. I have been thinking about my experience in this regard as well, and what propelled me on the spiritual path also. And it was similar to Swamiji, was that kind of moment where you know. And for me it was this picture of Yogananda on Autobiography of a Yogi. But I was thinking that, there's the story, which many of you have read, some perhaps not, where Yogananda meets Sri Yukteswar. Do you remember the story, Autobiography of a Yogi? And he is walking on an errand with another monk, and then he passes a lane and he sees this Christ-like sage with gray beard and hair. And just for a moment he recognizes him as his guru. And then what happens? Doubt sets in, and his mind says, dreamer, walk on. And he keeps going with his friend on this errand. And then he feels himself being magnetically pulled back to Sri Yukteswar. And then he finds him in the alley and falls at his feet. But do you know what Sri Yukteswar said to him when they met? Was, "Oh my Om, you have come to me." It's in that space, that open space where there is oneness. And that's what intuition is. It is that space where we know, beyond any doubt, because it's beyond the intellect, which if we only rely on will have nothing but doubt. When disciples came to Lahiri Mahashaya, if you don't know Lahiri Mahashaya, it's third from right behind Josh. And Lahiri Mahashaya would just sit locked up in ecstasy, in samadhi for most of the time. And disciples would just be like honeybees, and they would come to him in the morning and the evening and all hours of the night. And Lahiri taught in a much different way than, in Chapman, right, or in Chapman University here in Southern California, or UCLA or USC. His process of instruction was much different. It was through a transfer of vibration and consciousness. But when people asked Lahiri a question, he would say, well, I don't know, let me go into that state of consciousness and I will tell you what I perceive. So it wasn't about book learning, it wasn't about him espousing, it was about him going within his own experience and then sharing that selflessly with his disciples. So I would like to encourage us to, if you practice meditation or not, to take up the practice. And if you already practice, to deepen. And one of the techniques that I would suggest exploring is Kriya Yoga, because it's that pathway that, like the chant that Dharma Devi led us in, "Who is in my temple?" All the doors do open themselves. All the lights do light themselves. It's the inner path. And our intuition has to be an inner experience. And the practice of Kriya helps us navigate that spinal highway, like you were trying to come here this morning, to avoid the LA Marathon traffic, right? You have to know what exit, where to get off. And Kriya plus devotion, as Paramahansa Yogananda said, it works like spiritual mathematics. It leads us to self-realization. And that is my wish for you in this life.